Hey folks, it's Real Honesty with John Ritlin. I'm John Ritlin, and hey, I did some best worst TNA rivalries and best worst WWE rivalries earlier in the year. So why not do a list that I've had compiled for a while? Top 20 best WCW rivalries. Now this will be done in probably a 2 or 3 part format, and I'll probably only do about 10, 12 minutes each, like each show. And this will be done throughout the rest of the year. The reason I want to do this is because I might be taking a bit of a back step as far as shows once December hits. Because of holidays and also burned out. Guys, I've hosted over 500 shows this year alone. That's in part because I want to do the content and give you guys something to watch even in the next year. So anyway, WCW, one of my favorite wrestling promotions for a number of years. Great stuff. Really enjoyed it. Even at its worst, and God, it was at its worst, for the last couple of years, there were some really, really good rivalries. And this is some of the best. So these are ones I'm going to talk about, and I hope you enjoy them. Number 20, Sting versus Vampiro. Yes, okay, admittedly, it wasn't the greatest rivalry, and the Human Torch match was pretty shitty. But still, it was nice to see Sting at least working with a younger talent here, and I enjoyed Vampiro. Vampiro's a great worker. I mean, he probably shouldn't really wrestle much anymore now, just do commentary in Lucha Underground, as his body is pretty broken down. But I liked the Sting Vampiro rivalry. I thought it was goofy, it was ridiculous, but I thought it was a nice little clash of like younger wrestler, older wrestler. Even though realistically, I mean, like, I think there's only maybe 5, 6 years to separate them, because I think Vampiro's nearly 50. I could be wrong about that, but I know the Sting's in his mid-50s. But still, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty fun feud, especially in the dying days of WCW. Number 19, Harlem Heat versus the Steiners. Because it was really nice to see the Steiners throw a suplex and just throw these big athletic guys around. And to see, Harlem Heat get the better of the Steiners at times also. I mean, they had some pretty fun matches. And, Nitro was a place where a lot of them happened. They happened on a couple pay-per-views. But yeah, Harlem Heat was just a really, really good tag team. So were the Steiners. And it was just a really, really good clash. I really enjoyed watching them, which even if they didn't feud for long, before going off and then separating and then feuding again down the road, still, anytime they clashed was just really, really good, and they wanted to prove to be the best, and they were two of the best tag teams in WCW, which is another list I did, as far as tag teams in WWE, WCW, and I think even TNA, I did that, and those are lists, I believe, on a playlist, favorite tag teams, least favorite tag teams. That was a fun series of shows to do. But anyway, Harlem Heat versus Steiners, number 19. Number 18, Magnum TA versus Tully Blanchard. This probably would have ranked higher had it not been for Magnum TA's unfortunate accident where he was unable to compete because he suffered a broken neck and bruised spine and all this stuff. I mean, I forget exactly all that he suffered, but I know he wasn't able to wrestle again. But the feud that him and Tully had, culminating at Starrcade 85, was just amazing with that I Quit match and the breaking of the wooden chair and trying to stab somebody and making him quit, and just the build up to it with the promos and the beatdown by Tully and Magnum trying to get at him, for all that. It just worked so well. It was just such great stuff. You couldn't help but just enjoy what was happening. And like I said, this feud probably could have gone on even after that. Even when Magnum maybe got the world title. Had that accident not happened, that probably actually would have occurred. And him and Tully could have feuded over the world title, and that would have been kind of fun. But unfortunately, Magnum's accident happened, but let nothing take away from the fact that these two created one hell of a feud, and it was a great feud in 1985. And still holds up to this day. That cage match is one of the most brutal matches I've seen in U.S. wrestling in a long time. Number 17, Sting versus Cactus Jack. They feuded a little bit in 91. They had a submit or surrender match. I believe at a Clash of Champions, if I remember right. I think it was it wasn't a Clash of Champions. It was a pay-per-view just earlier. It was one of the two. But I know that once Sting became champion, Cactus Jack feuded with Sting. I believe they won. I believe Sting specifically wanted Cactus Jack to feud with him And they had a match at Beach Blast, Falls Count Anywhere match at Beach Blast 92, which has another great match that I will talk about in another feud a little bit down the road. But Sting and Cactus Jack, whenever they wrestled, really just always had a great, just clash to them. It was in the early days of WCW, so some people might not remember them except the purists and the people that did watch WCW. And yeah, they did have a little bit of a feud in TNA in 2009, but that's not what this is about, and we don't talk about that feud. Sting and Cactus Jack, however, had a great feud for about a year. It was really, really fun. And they always had good matches, and Cactus Jack could get a lot out of Sting, and vice versa. Number 16, Rey Mysterio versus Dean Malenko. They feuded in the beginning when Rey made his debut and faced Dean at Great American Bash 1996. And they feuded over the Cruiserweight title for a little bit. Like, Rey had beaten Dean, I believe, the night after the Bash at the Beach 96. If I remember it. Yeah, he did. He beat him on the Nitro right after Bash at the Beach 96 for the Cruiserweight title, and then Dean won it back in a really good match. But they always had this good feud. Where they worked really, really well together. I mean, in 96, I wouldn't say it was a feud of the year, but it was up there. It was probably top 3 in feud of the year because they had really, really good matches and could always pull off something different. Their Clash of Champions, their August Clash of Champions match where Dean Malenko hit a gut buster off the top, which is absolutely just stunning and just brutal. It's like it makes your ribs hurt. It makes my ribs hurt just thinking about it. It was just really good, and they really turned it up whenever they faced off. Number 15, Rick Rude versus Sting. In particular, this has to do with their U.S. title match, Clash of the Champions, where Sting went to the hospital and then came back, limping and everything, and tried to beat Rude, and then got hurt, and then got rolled up and got pinned, and Rude had the U.S. title after that. But him and Rude would feud even in 1994 when they disbanded from the NWA, and Rude was the WCW International Heavyweight Champion, which that was such a wordy title. It was classic early WCW. But they had a good match there. I believe it was Spring Stampede 1994. Sting and Rude worked really well together. Rude was a great heel. It's such a shame that Rick Rude is not in the WWE Hall of Fame. It's good that Sting is. It's just a shame that Rude isn't. But anytime they faced off, it felt personal and it felt real and it was good. And I mean, obviously they both respect each other, or at least it seemed like they did, and it made for good matches. Number 14, Ricky Steamboat and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Well, stunning Steve Austin here, but the matches they had in 1994 were great because Austin was, U.S. champion on the rise, trying to prove that he was better and he deserved a shot at the world title, and he wore Dragon Slayer on the back of his tights at one point when him and Steamboat were feuding. They even feuded, their history even went back to when you had Austin and Pillman as part of the Hollywood Blondes facing Steamboat, and who was supposed to be Shane Douglas, but actually ended up being Tom Zink under a mask and Dos Hombres. They had great matches then. I mean, it was Slamboree 1993 was a great match, a great cage match. But yeah, their singles matches in particular were great. Ricky Steamboat could get a lot out of Austin and vice versa. It was, old guard versus the young guard. And even though Steamboat wasn't old, I mean, he was 40 and he had been in the business for a while, and Austin was up and coming, had only been in the business 5-6 years at that point. It just made for a really good clash, and they worked really well together. I mean, it's a shame that Steamboat injured his back. I believe if it wasn't Great American Bash, if it wasn't Bash at the Beach 94, I think it was the Clash of Champions just after. I think it might have been at the Bash at the Beach that he injured his back. It's a shame that he did, because I think that they could have had a great feud even into the end of 94. But unfortunately, Steamboat decided to retire from wrestling until 2009 when he came back. But that still made for a great feud in 1994. It's just a shame it wasn't able to go through all of 94, because they worked really, really well together. And we go with number 13, Lex Luger versus Sting. Two best friends. They had a good match at Super Brawl 2 in 1992, and then Luger left the company and then came back in 95 when Sting actually convinced Eric Bischoff to hire him again. They had a bit of a feud, and they teamed up while Luger was still part of the Dungeon of Doom. Horrifying angle and horrifying stable. Don't ask about it. But they always had a pretty good chemistry, whether they were rivals or whether they were teammates. They were even tag team champions for like 4.5 months at one point in '96. And then you had the whole thing where Luger didn't trust Sting because a Sting imposter attacked Luger right before Fall Brawl '96. And then Sting was the cold, brooding guy that, even pushed Luger back with a bat at one point. And then they would team and then they would feud in later parts of WCW, which wasn't great. But their earlier stuff was a lot better, and that's why it's here at number 13. So that's where I'm going to stop this. Do you agree so far with what I'm saying? Do you disagree? Like, share, comment, and subscribe. My Twitter link is in the description. It's been Real Honesty with John Mifflin. I'm John Mifflin. I'll see you soon.